On today's episode of the Football Fellowship podcast, we are going to be breaking down why Manchester is blue yet again. It was a Phil Foden masterclass as his brace against a struggling Man United side saw them keep up the title race challenge. And speaking of, it was Darwin Nunez's 99th minute goal, which sees Liverpool hold on to that top spot, and potentially some controversy to discuss on that one as well. And speaking of late comebacks, Spurs had their own. A late 3-1 victory over a rejuvenated Palace side keeps up that top four fight. As always, make sure you stick around towards the end of the episode for some more rounds of the Football Fellowship quiz. Some rounds of Guess the Player for me to tackle and take on my co-host Mev for the crown of the Ball Knowledge King.
Thank you for that lovely intro, Toby. Yes, there is so much football to talk about, and the first place to start is the Manchester derby as City won the game 3-1 against United. And let's be honest, I didn't think coming into this game that United really had much of a chance. However, you do think to yourself, it is the derby. No matter where the two sides are in the league table, it's a great equaliser and anything can happen on the day. And despite the fact that Man United did take an early lead thanks to a wonderful, world-class Marcus Rashford goal, potentially silent the haters, I did feel like Manchester City were always going to come back into the game and win the game, and that's exactly what happened. But let's start off with the lineups, because there was a lot of talk around Man United, what Erik ten Hag was going to do, how is he going to try and neutralise his Man City side, and do you think the way that he played kind of a 4-2-4 or maybe a 4-4-2 with Rashford and Garnacho on the wings and Bruno Fernandes and McTominay kind of as false number 9 together, was that the right thing for Ten Hag to do in this game?
I think it made sense for Ten Hag to have some more bodies in that midfield and obviously have McTominay more as that sort of support and potentially obviously pushing Fernandes out a little bit wider, because you know how Man City are going to play. They are going to be able to overload that midfield through inverting fullbacks, through players dropping in like your Phil Fodens and Bernardo Silvas. So I definitely see why they wanted that extra midfield body. However, it did potentially restrict Man United's options going forward, but given maybe the difference between the two sides in quality and in form in recent weeks, it would be expected that Ten Hag is going to sit a little bit deeper. So yeah, it was an okay lineup and probably expected from Man United, I would think. In terms of City, I think it was probably the same situation, really. I think it was a lineup maybe we would have expected. Kyle Walker, I think, has been someone who has played really, really well recently and offered City some really good overlapping options and a lot more speed, I think, in their play. They've looked a little bit slow at times, and I think when he's been on the pitch, he has been someone who's sped things up when they've needed to be. Ake playing left back, supporting Doku, Haaland obviously up top, and the inform man Phil Foden just behind. So yeah, not too many surprises on the lineups, I would say.
Yeah, and I think you've teed me up there perfectly, mate, because I think the one player who you missed out from the back line, who I think was crucial in this game, and I think the whole football world is talking about, and rightly so, is John Stones, because the things he's doing on the ball are just incredible for a centre-back. The way that he's finding himself, in the penalty area at times, the way he's going into midfield and he's staying in midfield, he's not getting midfield and then tracking back immediately, as, that's a natural instinct for most centre-backs. Not only is he getting the ball, he's going past the man he passed the ball to. And I just think to myself, he is doing fantastic things on the ball. And it's actually I think it was against Chelsea when Akanji was doing that role. And we were saying, it doesn't quite suit him, he's not actually perfect for that role. But John Stones is, and I think when Man United were playing their 4 of Mainu, Casemiro, Bruno and McTominay, and when they were dropping deep and defending, it was actually John Stones who was breaking it up really well and getting to that spaces. And I thought to myself, do you know what? Arguably, with all the fantastic players that Man City have, with the Kevin De Bruyne's, the Fodens, the Haalands, everyone you just mentioned, the fact that it was John Stones who was taking the ball into the midfield and really, causing havoc for Man United, because positionally they didn't know where to go with him, who to track him. I thought, he, for me, more than anyone else, despite the fact that obviously Phil Foden got the 2 goals, was actually really underrated and one of the key players in this match.
Yeah, that comparison between Stones and Akanji is really interesting, and I think you can really see that when they are both off the ball playing in that role. I think Akanji is a little bit more cautious at times. He doesn't go too far forward, and when he's on the ball, he's not as good a carrier. You can see when Stones picks up that ball, he's really looking where the space is ahead of him. He's looking not only where can he get into space, but where can he get his teammates into space. And he's so easily able to do 1-2s, bounce passes, and just open up midfields with ease. And I think a lot of times when City have struggled, particularly in that midfield area this season, it has been because John Stones isn't there. He was such a pivotal part for them last season in that treble-winning side that in big games like this, having him in is just a huge plus for them.
Yeah, and not only for Manchester City, but for England as well, mate, with the Euros coming up. It's so crucial with all the injuries England have that he stays fit himself. But another English player, Marcus Rashford, he had a lot of critics coming into this game. Obviously, he put out an interview in midweek, and he got a bit of a 50-50 reception for it, I'd say. Some people were saying, he needs to do his talking on the pitch. Others were kind of in agreeing, saying that criticism may have been too far. But he definitely silenced the haters with that wonderful goal. I mean, the next year of 0.03. And I actually think, you don't see too many players nowadays shooting from that kind of position. And there's one where probably, 98, 99 times out of 100, that goes into Rosette and everyone's saying, what on earth are you doing? How silly is that? Make a pass. But, mate, off the crossbar, into the back of the net, it was just such a beautiful strike. Pure is a word I'd use. I mean, God, there's not many players who could score a goal like that. And, certainly he gave Man United a much-needed lead in this game, didn't he?
Yeah, it's such a sweet strike. It's like one of those where you picture yourself like doing it in like Sunday League and you just think like, and off the crossbar as well. It always makes it better. Yeah, lovely strike. And not only the strike, I think the hold-up play from Bruno was very good as well. I think it was either Diaz or Stones on his back. Very good strength, very good composure, laid it off for Rashford perfectly. Whether he shot there or he was able to get a dribble away, it was a very good position and he opened up a lot of space for Rashford after Onana's, I think it was absolutely boosted it up over the pitch, over City's high line. So yeah, a really good move, and I think one we would have expected of how United would get into this game is through those long balls when City are committing men's forward, especially from Onana, whose distribution, as we know, is fantastic. And I think in that first half, United played okay. I think they were definitely in the game. They did have a few little chances. They defended pretty well at times. And I think if I was a United fan watching that, I wouldn't have been too worried in that first half. City did have some good chances, but they didn't look like they were really going for it and like they were going to go and score a load of goals. I don't know if that's fair to say.
Is that fair to say? I think in the most part it is. I would say, in my opinion, I do think that they started to wane towards as the half went on. And then you kind of felt like, okay, halftime comes at a good time for Man United. But then how are they going to counterpunch City in the second half? Because it did feel like the tide was turning a little bit. City needed to go for the game. Second half, they're generally pretty good. But it did feel like, coming out in that second half, that it was all Man City. I mean, what did Man United have? Not much in the attacking sense, not much goal threat. Maybe, I don't know, maybe it's a privilege to say the right, or maybe Man United scored a little bit too early because it meant that Man City were just willing to throw bodies at them, and I think rightfully so. And I think one thing that they really did, I think Pep Guardiola definitely instructed them to do, was slow the play down. Just pass it around them, play quickly, and eventually they will tire and you will break them down and find the spaces. And I think that's exactly what happened. And it is one where you do maybe have to question, tactically, could Man United have done anything differently in terms of trying to cause more of a threat to Man City, so they knew that maybe they had to sit back a little bit more? Because, like you said, Kyle Walker was bombing up and down. He was very quick and fast. John Stones going into midfield. And it did feel like maybe there wasn't too much threat. And I don't know if that's how you saw it in the second half, but I thought, also you have to give credit to Man City because they were phenomenal.
Oh, yeah, in that second half especially, City completely turned up. They must have been told at halftime, right, you have license to go for it, and go for it. They did. They were much better in that second half. Not that they were bad in the first half. I think it was just a massive jump into that second half, moving the ball a lot quicker, really trying to find those sort of intricate passes. As opposed to that first half, I think there was a bit of caution, maybe not wanting obviously to commit too much too early, knowing that United could have some opportunities on the break. But yeah, second half they were back to their best, and they were led back to that best by Phil Foden, who started off the scoring with a lovely goal, cutting in from that right-hand side and blistering it into the top left-hand corner. Really nice strike. And I think that was even though that start of the second half they were very well, that goal was a massive catalyst in the rest of the game, because from then on they were almost faultless. Defensively, Walker was covering amazingly. He was supporting so much on the right side, and every time Rashford was breaking, it seemed like Walker was there to stop it. I think there was some really good link-up play in their midfield, knocking it around. Mainu and Casemiro, I think, were completely outplayed in that last half an hour and had no chance against Man City's midfield. And ultimately, it was a case of when are they going to get that second goal?
Yeah, it really was. And, there were a couple of mistakes in that second goal if you're being really scrutinising Man United. But I do just think Man City were excellent and they just broke them down both physically and mentally. And now they got to the point where they had some very weary legs. And I think Phil Foden skips past Casemiro far too easily. Potentially Onana could have done better with the shot. He gets a couple of fingers to it. And I think if you get a couple, maybe you should be keeping on maybe the stronger hand. But I just think, Man City were excellent and they thoroughly deserved it. And then, obviously, they go in and score 3. And at that point in the game, obviously, Man United are chasing the game. They can't really do much anyway. But the fact that I think Casemiro it was a very bad ball to Amrabat. And I think a lot of people have been focused on Amrabat. But no way in that position should the ball be at his chest and even trying to control it there. And then, obviously, the robot, he hasn't scored many in the Premier League recently. But obviously, he had a fantastic time against the Luton in midweek. Gets his goal in the game, and oh my god, I remember you met at the group chat, the miss he had in that first half. We couldn't believe it, could we?
I know, just absolute disbelief. It was one of those where you kind of just look away for a very split second because you think, oh, it's just going to go in. He'd kind of lose focus after it's that close to the goal, and somehow it went over. I think he got caught in two minds of whether to head it or volley it, and he went for the volley. I don't know how he missed. It seemed easier easier to score than to miss that. It was crazy, but yeah, I think at half time he got a software update, the robot, because after that I just couldn't believe it.
Yeah, no, I mean the whole team, honestly. But we've got to look ahead, and the next league game is away to Liverpool, and it is a massive, massive game, a crucial title-deciding 6-pointer. Obviously, the game after that, Man City, have got Arsenal after the international because they got FA Cup duties. And honestly, this is, arguably the last time we're going to see Pep versus Klopp. Well, definitely the last time in the league. Potentially we'll see it again in the FA Cup. But the last time we'll potentially see this in the English football, but also in football in general. And, there's so much at stake. And do you think either side, Man City or Liverpool, have to win the game?
I don't think so. I don't think either team is in a position where they have to win a game. Liverpool maybe not playing the best football they've ever played, but keep churning out results. And I don't think that's going to end anytime soon. And I think City, we know that they are able to make ground on any team when they get a really good run and they're playing at their best. So I don't think so. No, not particularly. I would say that I'd rather be a Man City fan going into this game, to be honest. I think a lot of Liverpool's play and how the game goes is maybe going to rely on Virgil van Dijk having a good game. I think if he has a good game and can have a very, very solid Liverpool backline, Liverpool can certainly get something out of it. But just after watching this game and the Liverpool Forest game, which we'll obviously be discussing later, it just feels like...
Should we get into it now, mate?
Yeah. I was just going to say, it just feels like City have a slight advantage going into this game, just the way both teams are playing at the moment. But I couldn't call it now, really, because as I was saying, Liverpool keep churning out results and they've done it again.
Yeah, obviously we'll go ahead and talk about Liverpool versus Nottingham Forest, or should I say Nottingham Forest versus Liverpool, as it was 1-0 to the visitors. And obviously going into this game, again, the story about Liverpool at the moment is the fact that they've got so many injuries, the weakened side that they do put out, but they're still managing to get results some way or the other, even if it's despite some refereeing controversies around drop balls or 99th minute winners through that man, Darwin Nunez, the crazy bastard. Liverpool do find a way, but I think the biggest test for Liverpool will obviously be against Man City, because if you look at the league position that Chelsea are in, obviously they spend a lot of money, but 11th in the league. If you look at the fact they played Southampton, obviously with respect, they are a championship side at the moment, that might change. And then when they play Nottingham Forest, look at where they are in the league position again. Manchester City with a weakened side, and although they might have some players back, will be the biggest test of all, because they are one of the best sides in Europe, and Man United, they can dismantle it very easily, as they've done against most teams this season as well. But they did, they managed to get the win against Nottingham Forest, which was the most important thing. But they do have a game midweek as well, so do Man City. But I think for Liverpool, just get 3 points no matter what. I think it's the motto at the moment. And we say it in the beginning of the season, during Christmas, and at the end. 3 points is all that matters, really, isn't it?
I'm not sure. I always think maybe it's coming from an Arsenal fan who grew up watching Wenger play in like 2012 when we went rubbish, and we'd always seem to play well, but then lose against Stoke and West Brom and things like that. I always have in the back of my mind how a team performs can be tell more long term, and I think tells more on the sort of sustainability of results. I think sort of teams that we've looked at this season in terms of Everton and Chelsea, and teams that have played really well at times but can't get results, I think shows good things going forward. But then the cliche of title-winning teams win no matter how they play, and I feel like there's sort of a balance between that. And I think in this game, Liverpool played pretty well and had some good spells, but they get the 3 points. And especially in these late stages of the season, when you do have to take it game by game, and you're not a club maybe like Everton or Chelsea in a position where you need to look long term, how things are going to change and how you're going to improve, you do take it week by week. And at this moment and this stage of the season, the 3 points does outweigh how you're playing. And I think that was probably a good caveat for this game, especially with Nottingham Forest at home. They've been pretty decent at home all season, much better at home than they have been away. And in this game, they played really well again, and they had a really good couple chances to win this game, to get an early goal, to go 1 or even sometimes 2-0 up. But Liverpool just found that way again. And it was an interesting lineup from Liverpool. And I don't know, it was again, every time I watch Liverpool, I think it's really strange, and I'm not quite sure at times how you're doing it.
No, I know exactly what you mean, because say, for example, this was Arsenal, this would be the equivalent of, I don't know, you playing Eddie and Ketty up top with Smith Rowe left wing, with Ramsdale in goal and some kids in defence. And I know exactly what you mean. Like, you think to yourself, you believe that in Klopp and the coaches that they've implemented a style of play that no matter who comes in, they'll play the same way and they can get results, but you don't expect them to. I mean, look at the midfield in this game. Joe Gomez, defensive midfield. The first time ever he did it was in midweek against Southampton. Bobby Clark making his full first team debut, and Alexis McAllister. And just think to yourself, no way is that midfield going to work. And I'll be honest, if it wasn't for some maybe poor, maybe unlucky finishing from Anthony Elanga, Nottingham Forest could have been 1 or maybe even 2-0 up in this game. Because I remember thinking, and I remember saying it on the podcast earlier in the season when Nottingham Forest went away to Anfield, and I think they lost like 3-0. But I remember thinking Anthony Elanga had Virgil van Dijk and Ibrahim Konate on toast in that game, and if he just wasn't offside as much, he would have scored. And in this game, he wasn't offside, but this time his finishing wasn't great. And it is one where he's still very young, he's still very young, and we forget this because, nowadays, 20-year-olds are established Premier League players. But if he can improve his finishing, Anthony Elanga, he's going to be a world beater one day. You can see it in him.
Yeah, he finds space so easily, it seems, especially, like we said, we know it was a young Liverpool back line, but it's a very, very well-organised system and a very organised back line, especially with Van Dijk leading it. And he always seems to find so much space. As you've said, in that previous Liverpool game, he was struggling for offsides. His positioning and timing in this game was spot on. He just couldn't put that ball in the back of the net. And I think that was maybe the case for quite a few Forest players today. I think Callum Hudson-Odoi had a really good game. Just a few maybe sort of final passes and finishes not quite there. I think the centre-back partnership of Murillo and Omar Bomedele was very, very good, but they just couldn't keep that clean sheet until the final second. I think as a Forest fan, they would have been very frustrated. But as I was saying, they played well. It's something positive to take, and it shows that there is something sort of building at the club. They can definitely keep improving. But just as Liverpool need to keep picking up 3 points in that title race, Forest need to keep getting results to stay away from that relegation zone. So it's it's bittersweet for Forest, certainly. But at the end of the day, at the full-time whistle, it was all sweet for Liverpool. And I'm sure you were very, very gassed with that goal, Mev.
Yeah, well, I mean, I was struggling to find a stream for the 3 p.m.s because every time I seemed to find one, it just kept on crashing. But I didn't watch, I maybe only watched about 60 minutes of the actual game, but then I managed to catch the winner. And I was so buzzing because I thought to myself, all right, what are the ramifications of a draw? What happens in the league? We need to now go beat City. We need to hope Arsenal. And then when I saw Darwin Nunez put the ball in the back of the net, I was so relieved because, like we said, with injuries, you think to yourself, eventually you're going to drop points. But we didn't. We've managed it and we got away with a win. And I'm so, so glad. And then we should probably talk about everything that happened in the build-up because, oh my God, I think this was probably the biggest fallout from the weekend. But it was non-football focused. It was just everything, the refereeing and the decisions. So let's start off with Nottingham Forest have a corner in the 97th minute, I think it is. I've got it in my note. Yeah, 97th minute. The ball comes in. Kelleher takes out Ibrahima Konate. He doesn't injure Konate's head, but Konate falls very awkwardly. Callum Hudson-Odoi has the ball in the corner, and then the referee stops it for a head injury, rightly so. I do think Konate is potentially playing up a little bit to it, but, smart play, the dark arts. But then the referee gives the ball to Liverpool, to Kelleher. Now, what did you make of it when you saw it afterwards?
Yeah, I have no idea how the referee has given the ball to Kelleher. It was no complaints for stopping the play with a head injury. It's always the case, and I think it's a really good, sensible rule, especially with injuries around concussion. But I have no idea. At the time he blew the whistle, Hudson-Odoi had the ball for at least a second or two, quite clearly sort of shielding it with the defender on his back, then blows the whistle, then somehow gives the ball to Kelleher. I would understand if he blew instantly when that ball was in the cross and Kelleher had punched it. But he waited so long and then somehow gave it to them. I really do not understand it. And the position that Forest had the ball in, to have an uncontested drop ball in that position, they could have won a throw in high up of the pitch. They could have maybe been inclined to keep the ball in the corner and see out the clock. They could have won a corner themselves as well and potentially had another attack. It ultimately probably would not have ended with Liverpool scoring, which I don't think is too crazy to say, because you probably wouldn't have won that corner, probably wouldn't have scored off of it, and it's seen out as at least a draw for Forest. So yeah, I'm not surprised at the reaction of the Forest coaching staff.
No, not at all. But what I will say is there was an incident in the first half where it was very similar when a Nottingham Forest player went down, Harvey Elliott had the ball, and the referee gave it back to Sells in Nottingham Forest goal. And then at the time, I remember I was like, what the hell? We had the ball. But at least I'd say the referee is consistently crap in that situation, because I think neither situation, the ball should have gone back to the keeper. So there's one thing. And then obviously Liverpool scored the goal. And also just shout out to Alexis McAllister, who in that situation is the calmest man on the pitch to be able to chip the ball back into the box and find a player as well. Most people would just hook it and hope for the best, but the fact that he found Nunez. But then everything afterwards, and I don't blame anyone from the Nottingham Forest side, because I think you have a right to be disgruntled. Because first of all, you had Stephen Reid, the Nottingham Forest coach, he got red carded. You had the Nottingham Forest owner on the pitch and in the tunnel interrogating Paul Tierney. I think Felipe, the centre-back, got a yellow card. And then you had Mark Clattenburg, former Premier League referee, after the game doing post-match interviews. And it did feel a bit like a bit of a circus at the end. But I can completely understand it, because Nottingham Forest being down there in the table, potentially getting a point deduction for breaking profit and sustainability rules, a point, 3 points, it's all so massive. And I think referees have to get it right at this stage of the season, especially. Do you agree?
Yeah, especially in something like that, which seems such an easy decision. I understand when there are complaints maybe about decisions that could potentially be subjective, decisions that maybe involve VAR, where there is discrepancy over what is clear and obvious. But in this case, it was such a strange decision to get wrong.
Yeah, it really was. And I don't know. I don't know where we're at, but I think, there's going to be a deep dive into VAR and refereeing in general, probably at the end of the season. I think to myself, they have to improve. We're not necessarily, they have to get every decision right, but it feels like they can definitely help themselves a lot more than they're doing. But yeah, 3 points for Liverpool, the first win at the City Ground since 1984, which is absolutely a mental stat. And Nottingham Forest, unfortunately, not a great result for them. But what have you made of Nuno Espirito Santo since he's been in charge of Nottingham Forest? They got, I think it's 10 points from the 10 games since he's been in charge, a slight upturn in form. Do you think you can see promising signs for them going forward?
Yeah, I do, but to be honest, I don't see much difference. I don't see a huge change. I think the way the sort of best players are playing is pretty similar to how it was under Steve Cooper. I think they've got a good squad with some really good players. They do pull out some pretty good results. They are still in danger, but I still think they definitely have enough quality to stay in the league this season, and I think they should have enough to sort of build and slowly work their way up the table if they're able to. I'm not super convinced by Santo as a manager. It seems strange that they haven't sort of played. I was really expecting them to play a back five this season. We know that Santo really likes his wing backs. So yeah, I'm not sure if that's something that he may implement later down the line. Is just trying to keep things sort of as they were before for now. But yeah, they've got a good side, but I don't think he's going to take them to crazy heights particularly. What about yourself?
Yeah, I think I said it potentially when he was first appointed, was that I'm not sure if he's still is he going to survive the whole of next season? And I'm not quite sure. I can definitely see him maybe be there for 12 months, maybe 18 months, and then things not quite working out. But I don't see it as a long-term appointment. However, I would have to say I don't support a club who are down there in relegation battle. So I'm probably speaking from a place of privilege, and I don't probably have the luxury of worrying about the long-term vision. It is all about staying in the Premier League, unfortunately for Nottingham Forest. But yeah, I think there is a slight upturn. Is it enough with the point deduction that I think is going to be coming? It's going to be very, very close. It's going to be Everton, Nottingham Forest, and Luton Town for that last space, because I think Burnley and Sheffield United are already gone. So it's going to be extremely close. But I don't think it's impossible. But they do need to get a bit of luck towards them, and they do need to get some more results. So we'll have to wait and see. But speaking about another team who are down there, Luton Town, as they narrowly lost out to Aston Villa. It was 2-3 on the day. And Aston Villa, I think there's only one place to start, and that's with a man of the moment, Ollie Watkins, because he's certainly making his place for the England squad. And, I think now he's the second highest goal scorer in the Premier League, only 2 behind Erling Haaland. And he's had a phenomenal season so far, hasn't he?
Yeah, he's not slowly actually, he's pretty quickly become a very complete striker. He is Aston Villa's main man. He is still incredibly underrated, I think. I don't think people are talking about how good of a season he is having so far. He is absolutely fantastic, and he fits Unai Emery's Aston Villa to a key. As you said, 16 goals from an expected goals of 14.25, which he is overperforming, and I think that's an area where he has been quite heavily criticised over the last couple seasons, that maybe he's not the most efficient finisher, maybe he's not the most clinical, but this season he has been that to a T. Absolutely fantastic. And 10 assists as well, top of the league for assists, from an expected assists of 3.5, so I think that 10 is quite highly overinflated, but still, I think a lot of the support work and what he brings to the team is outside of those numbers. The way he stretches back lines, he's so good at getting in behind. His timing of his runs is absolutely perfect. The way he pushes those back lines as far back as he can really brings in those midfield players, looking at McGinn and Bailey and Tielemans, who sort of plays this weird hybrid striker role alongside him. He is just so good. And it's really annoying that he's 28 years old. I was so surprised when I was looking up sort of the stats in his profile this game week that he's 28. I thought he was like 25, and I was thinking somebody like make a big move for him, like a massive team, because I'd love to see that. Not that Aston Villa aren't a massive club and aren't a big team, but one of sort of the Europe's elite, I suppose. Because that would be such a good signing. I'd love Arsenal to sign him potentially, even if he was a little bit younger. But still, certainly some more years left in his prime. Really hope Aston Villa can get Champions League so I can see him in that competition as well. Yeah, absolutely massive fan. And this game, again, he was superb.
Yeah, he was absolutely brilliant. And I do know what you mean about his age, because you forget that he's been a proper journeyman throughout his footballing career, and that the fact that, he is 28, and, the way the modern players play, he could probably still keep going on the top level for another 5, 6, 7, 8 years, if he keeps himself in tip-top shape, which he does seem to be the ultimate professional. But yeah, we should probably talk about Luton as well, because I was a bit disappointed in them, really, because I came into this game thinking it's not going to be an easy game, and then by the way the game ended, it definitely wasn't for Aston Villa. But the first half, Luton really didn't show up to the party. Maybe they were still, battered and bruised by Erling Haaland and Kevin De Bruyne in midweek, but really, it was far too easy for Aston Villa to get the goals. I mean, the first one was from a corner, and we know about Aston Villa and their set pieces with their set piece coach. They're fantastic at getting goals and assists from set pieces. I think Watkins found too much space. It was so easy for him to make a very simple run, get ahead of his man, and secure the header. I think the second goal as well, just a simple ball over the top from Luiz, and the fact that he was played onside, but I think by Ogbene on the far side, and the referee put his flag up for offside. But then when you look at the replay, it's like, no, he's clearly on, and it's what he said about stretching the play, and the fact that he can time his run so perfectly, and the fact that the touch on his left foot to set him up on his right. Most players would probably be trying to control it on their right, and then taking another touch to set it up, and then shooting, and then by then the chance is gone. But the fact that it's one touch on his weaker foot and then shot, I just thought, yeah, he's in red hot form at the moment, and he's so clinical. And Aston Villa are really lucky to have him, because arguably without him, you need your striker up front to be scoring goals, and he's absolutely doing that. But I was really disappointed at Luton, but they did show up in the second half, didn't they?
Yeah, it was a big tale of two halves. This one, Villa fantastic in the first, and Luton turned it round and brought that game back. And I'm really glad you mentioned Aston Villa attacking set piece wise, that they have been pretty decent this season, because defending them, they have been really, really poor. I think I wanted to mention this last week against Forest, that they conceded, I think it was 2 goals last week from set pieces against Forest, and it's another 2 goals from set pieces this week again. Since they've sort of had their side without Tyrone Mings in, they do not have a natural ball winner in the air when defending set pieces. There's nobody they sort of look to as being that sort of main man who's organising that back line, is not afraid to go and win that ball at all. When you're looking at their sort of defenders of Ezri Konsa, Pau Torres, Clement Longley, I don't think there's an issue with height there. I just think these are players that are certainly more ball-playing centre-backs than they are sort of your old-school aerial duel-winning centre-backs. I think they're around the 11th or 12th tallest team in the league, Aston Villa. So they are down there, and especially last week against Forest, who I think are on average the second tallest team, that I think teams are starting to target them on that, and Luton especially. You could really tell when they won those corners and those high free kicks, they were taking their time to line up and seeing it as the best way to hurt a really good Aston Villa side. And it is quite a big thorn in Aston Villa's side at the moment that Luton took full advantage of.
Yeah, absolutely. And when you talk about for the second goal, especially when you got the delivery of someone like Alfie Doughty, who I think has had a phenomenal season to date, the way he can just put a ball. I mean, his free kick for the second goal for Luton, the one that Morris scored, I thought to myself, he has put it absolutely on a sixpence. When Carlton Morris was there, he didn't even need to break his stride at all. He was just there perfectly for him on his stronger foot, and he could put it into the bottom corner. I just thought to myself, that is an outrageous delivery. But to be fair, when you've got someone of the quality of Doughty with his deliveries, take full advantage of it. And that's how Luton have scored a lot of their goals this season. But I just think to myself, I do agree on Villa because they are poor. And then you don't necessarily need massive players to be able to head the ball. I mean, think about some of the best headers in the league. Like Ben Mee is only 6 foot, If you think about, I'm trying to think of Lisandro Martinez, he struggled initially last season for the couple of opening games, but he's actually very, very good at winning balls in the air. And of course, in the ideal situation, you've probably got a Saliba or a Van Dijk who's amazing on the ball and great in the air. But just because you're small doesn't mean you can't head a ball great. And I do agree. I don't understand it when they do have a set piece coach. They can be so fantastic attackingly, but so poor defensively. It's a real chalk and cheese situation. I don't know, I don't know what they're doing on the training ground, but it is just very interesting. But they do obviously get the winner from a cross by themselves. But this time the fullback on the far post, Luca Digne. And I think if I'm honest, I think Kabore does go to sleep a little bit at the back post. I think he maybe sees Digne, but he doesn't quite track the run as well as he should have. And then they get the header in the and the winner in the 89th minute of the game. And now they perfectly tee up their game on the weekend against Tottenham Hotspurs, the two sides 4th and 5th in the league table. Similar to the Liverpool Man City game, two big games on Super Sunday. How do you see the Villa Spurs game going, Toby?
Oh, it's going to be a very, very good game. Two sides who are not afraid to play that high risk, high reward football and throw everything on the line. I think it's going to be very end to end. I think both teams are going to go for it, and I think they know that whoever wins this game is going to be just very, very good for their momentum, which is huge. There's going to be 10 games left after this game in the season. What do I think? Who do I think is going to come on top? I'm really not sure. It seems like both sides are very sort of well matched to attack and expose the weaknesses of the other, because they both really, really press on, and they're both going to want to try and exploit the high lines that they have. I think Tottenham are a better team at recovering those sort of defensive areas that are left in behind, where Watkins may be running to. Looking at Van de Ven and Romero, I think are going to be very, very good at recovering and trying to track back and get to Watkins. But then I think going the other way, that Aston Villa, even though they play that high line, play a fantastic offside trap, and the amount of offsides that they catch out from teams this season is absolutely crazy. I can't remember the numbers off the top of my head, but they are very, very high. So if I had to predict it, I think that Villa look like they're getting results better at the moment, and I feel like Tottenham, maybe in sort of the last 6 or 7 games, haven't looked as good as they did at the start of the season. So if I had to predict who I think it's going to be, I think it's going to be Villa. I think they're going to be able to get beyond Tottenham. I think they're going to be able to catch out their potentially inverting midfield, which I think is something we can actually talk about in this Palace game. And yeah, I'm just going to go for Villa. I think if they can win this, they can get a pretty decent gap on Tottenham in that 4th place and set up the rest of the season really well for them. What do you reckon?
Of course, the Arsenal fan doesn't back Spurs. I actually do think it will be Spurs, and we'll come on to the Spurs game because they beat Crystal Palace 3-1 at home, and it was a game which Spurs weren't the better side. I think Crystal Palace were the better side for 70-75 minutes in the game. But I think Spurs then in the final 15, they did manage to convert some of their chances, and they obviously won the game 3-1. And the reason why I think Spurs will probably beat Aston Villa is because I think their forward players will be able to time their runs to perfection, and they will beat the offside trap of Villa. And the game will be high risk, high reward, and it just seems like who can mitigate the risk and take advantage of the opponent's weaknesses the most. And I think whoever Spurs play in the front line, whether it's Son, Kulusevski, Johnson, Werner, I think they'll all be able to break through the Aston Villa high line. And, as long as Martinez doesn't have a worldie of a game, I think they will score those goals and convert those chances. But, as we saw in the game against Crystal Palace, they can be nullified for large proportions of the game, because I don't think they were the best for the most part of the game. I actually think Crystal Palace and Oliver Glasner, it was a very Roy Hodgson-esque game from them and game plan. But I did think they, fair play to them, because I thought they actually deserved to be 1-0 up.
Yeah, it felt like Glasner's sort of wing backs really nullified Tottenham in a way. I think it restricted Udogie being able to invert much, and he was normally having to be out on that left side to support Timo Werner, and obviously they were missing Pedro Porro still, and it was Emerson Royale who does struggle when inverting. I think they just decided to sort of keep him out wide. So that was really interesting, and I think it's something that could potentially be translated into the Aston Villa game. I think when we sort of see Matty Cash and Moreno be players who really like to stay wide and push up high when possible, that I think Postecoglou may have the same issue, that if he does invert those fullbacks, there's a lot of space left. It's maybe not an area that needs to be overloaded as much, with Aston Villa normally sort of only playing 2 central midfielders with the striker dropping back at times. I think they'll have enough numbers in there as is. So that's something I'm certainly going to keep my eye on, is how Spurs' fullbacks play against Villa, because in this game, it just didn't seem to work. And I think that was a big issue that potentially sort of restricted their build-up play at times.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right on that. Spurs really did struggle initially, and I think fair play to Crystal Palace because all of our guys are coming in, and you thought to yourself maybe he said in his first interview that he wanted to score goals. That's what he wanted to do, which I thought was quite strange because he didn't say win matches. He just said score goals, which is fair enough, I suppose. But I did think to myself they'd be going for Spurs a lot more, but they didn't, and like you said, they focused on nullifying them. And it was only when, there was a bit of individual brilliance by Ebrechese that they got themselves 1-0 up. And I did think to myself there that, could this be a game with Spurs slip up? Because they lost in their previous home game against Wolverhampton Wanderers, fantastic performance. Could it be again when they slip up at home? And I just thought to myself, like you said at the beginning, Tobes, they are not as great as they were at the beginning, but they're still managing to find results. And yes, they had issues with injuries. You had players leaving for AFCON. Now they're getting a side back, but they do seem susceptible. And I do think it's one where they need to be more solid defensively. But I think, if anything, that's going to come next season, maybe. And over the summer, they're trying to address it on the training pitch. But I think for this season, it's very much carry on as we were. They might score, but we'll back ourselves to score more, which isn't the best way to go about a game of football, because you do think to yourself, lads, just keep a clean sheet for once, but they just don't seem to be able to do so at the moment. But thankfully, they are able to score goals, because if it wasn't for the fact that, they've got some wonderful attacking players, but this time it was more than anything, I think it was the mistakes of Palace. I think Anderson kind of loses the ball, and I think Lerma could have potentially got to Johnson for their first goal. And I think for the second goal, the fact that it was a ball into the box of Maddison, kind of like hit and hope. And the fact that Ward doesn't see Romero, it did seem like very sloppy goals to give away. But credit to Spurs, because they carried on getting into Palace and they eventually got their rewards.
Yeah, Spurs still are a top side. I think the way they attack is so fluid, it's so dangerous, and it just feels like at the moment, because I think at the start of the season, I was pretty worried as an Arsenal fan seeing how Tottenham were playing. I think they probably, if they could have kept that up, kept all their players fit and at the club, as you said, I think they probably still would have been in and around the title race potentially. They were looking that good. It just feels like a slight drop off. But yeah, again, those last 20 minutes, Spurs were at their best. They really turned it on. They looked a lot quicker. They were moving the ball so much better than they were for the rest of the game. And they took advantage of the danger when they saw it. They saw that they could have taken that game once they got that first goal and the crowd was up. A nice second goal from Romero, and then that third one just breaking through. A little bit lucky to get into the position that Son did, the way it sort of rebounded off. I can't remember who passed it to him. I think it was Johnson again, actually. Sort of played it off him and it bounced through into him. But it was a lovely finish, and no doubt about that. And really, really good for them to have Son back and playing up front, because he seems to suit that striker role really, really well. With Richarlison obviously out, we're not sure exactly when he'll be back just yet. But yeah, when you've got a player like Son who can play almost any position in that front four, it's just a huge, huge asset to have. And I think even if they lose to Villa, they could still potentially get in that fourth place. I don't think it's a make or break next week, because they do have the quality in their side. But I'm not sure. I'm not sure what it is with Spurs that gives me doubts in that Villa game. I think Porro is such a big loss as well. That's what I've been looking at. And I think in this game against Palace, they did really miss him again, because he has probably been one of the best right backs this season.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think Emerson, when he did come in, he did absolutely fine. I think he didn't do anything wrong. But it is on the ball, he isn't as good as Porro, and Porro is, like you said, one of the best fullbacks in the league on the ball. But we'll have to wait and see, because that game, that Sunday, Villa versus Spurs, Manchester City versus Liverpool, it's going to be a big, big Sunday, and we'll be sure to cover it all for you on the Football Fellowship podcast. But we've got to talk about the next game, which was Everton 1, West Ham United 3. And West Ham winless in the last 10, but they really should have won this one, shouldn't they?
I assume you mean Everton, because West Ham did win it.
Yeah, I'm talking about Everton. Yeah, I thought they had great chances, and I thought, they should have arguably won the game. An XG of 2.73. They should have scored more, but they're just really struggling in front of goal.
Yeah, this was another incredibly frustrating game for Everton. They played very, very well. I think West Ham defensively were all over the place at times. They could not deal with, I think, the speed that Everton were transitioning in and getting the ball up the pitch. And they created so many chances. It was almost single-handedly won this game for West Ham by Areola, who had an absolute stormer. He saved Beto's penalty. He made 9 saves overall and prevented an XG of 3.11 post-shot, which is absolutely huge. You think if he didn't make any of the saves that he did, it would have been 4-3 to Everton. I think Everton probably could have won this game on another day, 3 or 4-0, really. They were all over them, especially in that first half. It was complete domination from Everton.
Yeah, it really was. And that's what I meant, where I thought that Everton could have easily have won this game. I mean, really, the two of West Ham's goals came right at the death. And so at that point in the game, Everton really should have scored at least a couple more to really put it to bed. But yeah, I thought to myself, credit to West Ham and credit to Areola, because like you said, you read out his stats there from the game, but he's actually such an underrated goalkeeper who doesn't get talked about as much. I mean, we talk about, the Alissons, the Edisons, Vicarias, Popes, whoever's. And then Areola's name doesn't really get talked about, kind of gets brushed aside, but credit to him, because I think he's the perfect goalkeeper for West Ham. He can make some incredible stops like he did in this game. His distribution isn't too bad. And the fact that, he's got that experience of playing at the highest level as well for former clubs. I think he's a fantastic goalkeeper and perfect for West Ham. But then we should talk about that missed penalty, because I can understand why Sean Dyche started better, because Dominic Calvert-Lewin is in a really barren spell at the moment. But he thought to himself, he should really score that goal because it was there. And really, I think when a player gets a penalty, they should be the one converting. And if the keeper makes a save, it's okay, but it's kind of more on the person who missed it. And I thought to myself, he didn't put a bottom corner, very along the ground, very good height for Areola to save it. I thought to myself, maybe he's missed a chance. But in fairness to him, he did make up for it in the second half. And it was a wonderful ball by James Garner running down the right-hand side. And I thought to myself, oh my God, Everton finally get the goal they deserved. They're in the lead, but they couldn't hold on, could they?
Yeah, I just want to say, I want to give a little bit of credit to Areola for that penalty, because I don't think it was an awful penalty. It wasn't a great penalty. It was like a 5.5 out of 10, I'd say. It wasn't bad, but he probably should have done better. He should have hit it with a little bit more conviction. But yeah, ultimately, it didn't even matter, because West Ham somehow went up the other end and scored 3 goals. Completely changed the game. They did not have a number of particularly good chances throughout the game at all, but when they had them, they took them really, really well. Zuma with that first goal from the corner, which, if there may have been a player on the line who was a couple inches taller than James Garner, he could have cleared it off the line, but he didn't, went in that top corner. And then Soucek scores an absolute worldie, crossed in from Kudus, turns around, chests it outside the boot into the top corner. A lovely, lovely goal. And it may have felt undeserved, but when you can win a game on almost a single moment of brilliance like that, there's not really much else you can do.
Yeah, absolutely. And then they go on the other end again, and then they score another one. And honestly, fair play to West Ham. And fair play to David Moyes in his post-match interview, saying he didn't think West Ham were necessarily the better team. He said it was very equal. I think fair play. Maybe it must be the Everton loving from when his time when he managed there. But I did think to myself, West Ham maybe potentially got lucky. But when you think about it now, in the league table, they're not too far away from Man United. And despite the fact that, they've been through a pretty terrible 2024 and started the year, to now win against Everton, they got the Europa League to look forward to as well midweek. They're not having a bad season, despite the fact there's also David Moyes to leave, are they?
No, not at all. And I think the points they built up at the start of the season is enough to sort of carry them on through this difficult stage. I think if there had been sort of shorter spells of form than they're having, they seem to have a really good sort of first 12 games, and then in the last 12 it's been quite poor. I think if those would have been broken up into 3 games bad, 3 games good, I don't think there would be any discussion about David Moyes and his role at West Ham, because the position he's got them in is incredible, and I think it's about as good as West Ham have been for the last 20 years. I think that's more than fair to say. He's managed the squad fantastically. He's brought in some absolutely superb players in terms of looking at Kudus. I'm a huge fan of. He's turned Bowen into one of the most clinical finishers in the league and a top player. Lucas Paqueta as well. James Ward-Prowse coming in. I think that squad is so good. I think the way he's managed it is very, very well. I think the way he manages games in particular is very, very well, as we've seen in this game. A game where they haven't played well, he's still able to manage that team and get a result at the end. It's not just luck when it comes to moments like that. So for me, I can't see any question marks over David Moyes at all, even if for the rest of the season now they still play pretty poorly. I think in the summer he'll be able to rejuvenate them and get them on a good run again come next season, really.
Yeah, well, you might have to tell the West Ham fans that, because I think they are pretty fed up from what I've seen. Anyway, from the online fans, at least, not maybe from the match-going fans. But we should then move on to the Football Fellowship quiz. Yes, the halftime quiz. No fancy transition there into the quiz. Just say it how it is. A bit of good old classic West Ham and David Moyes. So, yeah.
Proper Brexit transition.
Proper Brexit transition, yeah. If you don't know what we're talking about, it is the halftime quiz. We're doing guess the player. We're going to do 2 each. We're going to do, first of all, guess the player based on the club that they play for, and then second one based on the former teammates. And Toby, who's doing who? I think we all know you're winning this one so far.
Yeah, a 13-point lead at the moment. It's 37-24. Still got a few weeks left of this quiz format, so a couple 4 or 5 pointers from yourself, a couple stinkers from myself, and it could all change. But yeah, for now, you need some points, Mev, and I believe in you. I think you're going to get them this week.
Yeah, and I don't think you're going to get any because I've royally stitched you up.
Oh, nice. I like to hear that.
Yeah, well, I mean, you got to do what you got to do. Well, let's see how easy these are. I'll go first with you on this week, if that's all right.
Yep, sounds good to me.
Okay. I'm ready.
So, almost dropped my pen. Your first player. No, not player. I always say that. Your first club for 5 points is Watford.
Okay. Journeyman who's been through Watford. Trying to think. They've had loads of players over the years. Loads of managers as well. Let's go with Gerard Deulofeu.
It is not Gerard Deulofeu, unfortunately, but I like that answer. That is a good cult player of the Premier League, I'd say. Scored some lovely goals back in the day. Your second club for 4 points is Man United.
Man United. Okay. Well, the first player that came to mind, and I feel like I should probably go with my gut instinct, is Tom Cleverley.
I thought you were going to say that. I don't know why. But unfortunately, it is not right. It's not Tom Cleverley. Your third club for 3 points is Aston Villa.
Watford. Is it Ashley Young?
It is Ashley Young for 3 points. Very nicely done, mate. Very nicely done.
Thank you.
Did you know he played for Watford, or was that a sort of an educated guess?
No, I knew he played for Watford, but I didn't know.
Yeah.
I didn't know who it was until you said Aston Villa. Yeah. Oh, you've been very nice to me. Oh, I feel
that was good.
Now.
I didn't know he played for Watford. To be honest, it was something I never knew. The next clubs would have been Inter Milan and Everton.
Yeah, I think I would have guessed it from those. But yeah. Oh, I mean, I'll absolutely take that. Thank you very much.
That was good 3 points, mate. Well done.
Lovely. Yeah. Well, you ready for yours?
I don't know if I am, to be honest, but I like that it's going to be very difficult. It makes it fun. So yes.
Well, it's not. Well, we'll see. We'll see. I don't think it's going to be too bad. Actually, I'm probably playing it on. But yeah. Okay. So, guess the player. Your first club is Sevilla.
Sevilla. Okay. Want obscure players who have played for Sevilla. First one that came to my head was Samir Nasri. Who else has been at Sevilla that I can think of? Eric Lamela, but that's quite obvious. That's probably one of his most well-known clubs, I would say. Let's just go for the first one that came to my head, Samir Nasri.
It is not Samir Nasri, but that's a good guess. Your second club is Schalke.
Schalke. Okay. Sevilla and Schalke. So it could be Spanish. Could be German. There's always a possible thing to go off, isn't it? Schalke. I don't think the players that keep coming to my head is like Huntelaar, but it's not going to be him because that's too early on for it to be Schalke. Andre Schürrle, maybe. Although I think we've already done him, so I'm going to rule him out. Schalke and Sevilla. Oh, there is a Ukrainian winger that I think is Yarmolenko, who might have played for both of those. I might be getting two players mixed up. Let's go for Yarmolenko.
No, it is not Yarmolenko. I'm not sure. I think he might have played for Valencia.
I think I might be moulding two players there, or thinking of someone else.
Maybe. No, but it wasn't the worst guess in the world. Your third club for 3 points is Celtic.
Sorry, I think your mic cut out there. Who was that?
Oh, your third club is Celtic.
Celtic. Oh, God, I'm in trouble here. Celtic, Sevilla, and Schalke. Who on earth could this be? My Scottish football knowledge is really, really bad. Oh, God, no, I'm really struggling. Goalkeepers, defenders, midfielders maybe. Schalke and Sevilla. I don't know why Lewis Holtby has come to my mind. No idea why. Or like Larsson. Is it Henrik Larsson? He played for Celtic. Oh, I have no idea, honestly. Let's go Lewis Holtby as a weird guess.
No, it is not Lewis Holtby. I'm not sure which team to give you next. I'll go. Okay, your fourth team for 2 points is Helsinki.
Is Helsinki? Helsinki? Is that Copenhagen? Is Denmark? Oslo is Norway, so Helsinki must be Swedish. And I said Larsson last time. But which Larsson? Is it Henrik Larsson? I'm thinking of the striker with the longish hair. If his name's not Henrik, but Larsson.
Is that your guess?
Larsson, yeah.
It is not Larsson. You're actually in the wrong.
No.
You're actually in the wrong country.
Where is Helsinki?
Finland.
Don't tell me. Oh, I know who it is now. You don't even need to give me the last club because I'm assuming it's going to be Norwich.
It is. It is Norwich.
Is it
Who
Timo
is the player?
Pukki?
It is Timo Pukki. I thought as soon as you.
Oh, that is.
See, I thought I had Norwich down as fourth, and I was like, well, you know we're near, so I thought I'll give you Helsinki. You know it's Finnish, and then you have a pretty good idea. But then you just got the wrong country, and I thought,
that
oh
is
my God.
awful geography knowledge for myself. I'm ashamed of that. What is the capital of Sweden?
Now, why are you putting me on the spot? Great.
I can't even think of it now.
This is where the geography degree really comes in handy here. Shows how much I learned.
What the hell is the capital of Sweden? That's so embarrassing.
What is Sweden capital? Hang on. It is Stockholm. Oh my God.
Oh my God, that is shocking from us.
Yeah.
Why did I think it? I'm embarrassed.
Yeah, well, you've embarrassed me as well now, so thank you. In our defense, it is harder when you are actively trying to record a podcast and trying to think of other things as well.
It's the pressure. You guys wouldn't get it. It's the lights. It's the crew behind the scenes. It's the director in your ear. It's a lot of things to take in. So.
I did not come back from that. Okay, let's just move on. Tobes. Right. So, I don't know how many points you want for that.
Your turn.
I'll give you 2.
No. I got it on 1, mate. I got it on 1. That's a 1-pointer.
You sure? Because you did guess it as Norwich next.
No, that's a 1-pointer.
Okay,
100%.
fair enough.
Well, thank you.
Fair enough.
Yeah. Are you
All
ready?
right.
Are you ready for your guess the teammates now?
Yeah, go on. Why not?
The tougher of the 2 rounds. And
Can't
your
get any
former
worse from there.
teammate is Cesc Fabregas.
Okay. So Fabregas, Arsenal, Chelsea, Barca, Monaco, and that side in Italy, which I can't
Como.
remember the name of right now. Como, yes.
Yeah, he's
Lake
manager
Como.
now as well, isn't he?
Yeah. Oh dear. Okay, let's. Who on earth could this be? He's played. Oh, there's no way I'm getting this first time. Let's go for. I have no idea who to go for. Let's go for Stefan Jovetic.
It is not Stefan Jovetic. Your second former teammate is Lautaro Martinez.
Okay. I'll be honest, I don't know where he was before Inter, and I can't quite remember, so I'm going to assume he was back home in Argentina. He was somewhere else, and I can't quite remember. Okay, but maybe it is just Inter Milan. So, okay. Fabregas, Martinez. Still, Martinez is fairly young. He's not as young as you think, and Fabregas is retired now. Let's maybe a bar. No, Messi hasn't played for enough clubs. Mascherano, no. Where would he play with Martinez? Maybe in Argentina. Tevez, Chelsea. Oh, who's that striker? Let's go for Radamel Falcao.
It is not Radamel Falcao, unfortunately.
Okay.
Your third former teammate for 3 points is Digne.
Digne. Okay.
What a legend.
Yeah, but the issue is, again, I think I just remember him. I can't remember where he was before Udinese.
If anywhere.
If anywhere. Great save, thank you, mate. I have no idea. So let's go for Joe Delafeu.
It is not Delafeu again.
Yeah.
What a man.
Been everywhere.
Your fourth player for 2 points is Marcus Rashford. Very topical.
Oh, God, okay. So he's played with Rashford at Man United. But he's also gone to Udinese. And then played at possibly Inter? And then played with Fabregas. It's got to be on the older side. It's not Ashley Young. Who's else gone to Inter? Maybe it's Mkhitaryan. Who would he play with Fabregas? Monaco? Como? Mkhitaryan? Maybe. Who else went? Man United. Then Italy. Is it Darmian? Could be. No, where would he play with Fabregas? I don't know. I'll be honest. Let's go. Let's say Matteo Darmian.
It is not Darmian, unfortunately.
Okay.
I think you'll get it on this one. I'm pretty sure you will. It is, for 1 point, Jack Wilshere.
What? Hang on. Wilshere. Wilshere was Arsenal, West Ham, Bournemouth. So it's probably more Wilshere, Arsenal. Eh?
I can give you a clue. I can give you Fabregas's club, and it might help.
Yeah, I'm on 1 point. So yeah, go on.
It is Barcelona for Fabregas.
I thought it might have been, but Barcelona, Inter. Wait, hang on. I've already said... No, hang on. Why am I thinking of Nicholas Bentner? No, it's not Bentner. It's not Bentner. I don't know who it is.
So, played with Di Natale, then played with Fabregas, then played with Wilshere, then played with Rashford, then ended up with Martinez.
So, there
Quite
is a player
famous transfer, Wilshere to Rashford.
There should be a player that jumps out. Unfortunately, it just doesn't. Who went from Arsenal to Man United? There's Mkhitaryan.
In 2018. You're very close with Mkhitaryan, very close. Just the wrong way.
Is it Alexis Sanchez?
It is Alexis Sanchez for a cheeky 1 point.
Oh dear, that was poor. I should have got Sanchez.
I think if you would have known he was at Udinese,
I didn't. That was.
I think if you would have known that would have jumped. You would have got it straight away there. He's like one of. They haven't had too many big players, and he is one of them.
No, fair enough. I didn't know that. Poor for me. Oh dear.
Unlucky, mate. Unlucky. But a point.
So a point. I got 4 from this episode, so I'll take that.
Yeah.
And you've got 1, so you need 3 to catch up. We'll see how it goes.
So.
Are you ready?
I am. Let's go.
So what I've done with the former teammates, I don't actually write down the order I'm going to say them anymore. So
okay,
but let's go with your first one. First former teammate is Ciro Immobile.
Was that Immobile you cut out at the last second?
Yeah, it was Immobile.
Okay, so Dortmund, Juve, he was at for a bit early. Sevilla and Lazio. I'm thinking Dortmund or Sevilla because they're sort of sneaky ones. Thinking Dortmund. So I'm going to go Aubameyang.
It is not Aubameyang. So your second former teammate for 4 points is Jorginho.
Jorginho. So that could still potentially... So then that's obviously going to be Napoli, Chelsea and Arsenal. Interesting. I'm thinking Chelsea or Napoli for this. Anyone who's been at Chelsea and Sevilla. Back in there. Or still potentially Chelsea and Dortmund. Or Napoli and Dortmund. Interesting. Oh, Chelsea and Dortmund. Could maybe be Michy Batshuayi.
It is not Michy Batshuayi.
I hate the pause. I keep thinking you're going to go like, it is.
No, I'm just thinking, do I give you any other hints? But I don't think yet. Because your next player...
No hints.
No, your next former teammate for 3 points is very topical, Xabi Alonso.
Xabi Alonso. Okay, so that's even... So it's obviously Real Madrid, Liverpool and Bayern. Interesting. I don't think it's going to be Liverpool. Because it could be, I suppose, but I just don't think it would be. Oh, this might work. It might be. No, that wouldn't work, I don't think. Actually, it could do.
Who are you thinking of?
I'm thinking of Higuain. But I don't know how many teams he's been at, actually. He's been at Napoli, Chelsea, Juve, and I think that's all I know. I'm not sure if he's been at enough clubs. Oh, Real Madrid, that's the one I was missing. So there could be a fifth club, because I was thinking Real Madrid with Xabi Alonso. I'm thinking Napoli with Jorginho, and I'm thinking Juve with Immobile. But I'm not sure. It could be the American side last. Let's go for it. Let's go for Higuain.
It is not Higuain.
Damn.
You're doing a lot better than I thought you would, but you still haven't got close, is what I'll tell you.
Okay.
So your fourth former teammate for 2 points is Santi Cazorla.
Cazorla, oh my god. So there's obviously Arsenal, Villarreal. I think he was a Real Oviedo back in the day as well. Which it could be. That could be a spicy one. I think he was there with... Who was he there with? I don't think it was David Silva. Juan Mata, maybe? But I don't think Mata's ever played with Xabi Alonso. Or Immobile. So I'm thinking Arsenal or Villarreal. Possibly Arsenal. Someone who was at Arsenal and played with Xabi Alonso. Thinking Bayern and Real Madrid for Xabi Alonso, maybe. Oh, this is tough. Could it be someone strange? Like... No, I don't think he was ever at Bayern. Oh, this is difficult.
I'll give you one clue here.
Okay.
You're looking for a goalkeeper.
A goalkeeper? I think you might... Oh, no, I was going to say I think you might have given it to me, but that's a bit cocky. Is it Pepe Reina?
Oh, it is!
Yeah.
Oh, you were going on like that Chelsea, and I was like, oh no, there's no way he's going to get Pepe Reina.
You put it too much on a platter with the goalie, mate. He is the goalie journeyman. What was it? So it was Napoli with Jorginho, Liverpool with Xabi Alonso, Villarreal with Cazorla, and who was it with Immobile?
Lazio.
Oh, I never would have got that. That's an interesting one.
That's why I was like, oh, you're nowhere near, because you were still jumping between teams, and I was just like, you haven't got any... Oh, for God's sake.
Thanks for the extra hint, mate. Very kind.
I'll screw myself over there. Yeah, your last player would have been Carlos Puyol.
Ah, nice.
Do you think you would have got it with Barcelona?
Oh, I'm not sure, I'm not sure. I never think of keepers. I feel like nobody ever thinks of them. So that's a sneaky one. I like that.
Well, I just helped you out there.
Well, you've gained a point there, mate. It's now 40 to me, 28 to you. So you've gained 1 point. 1 point closed the gap. And there is actually only 2 more episodes of Guess the Player. So next week will be a normal Guess the Player. And then after that, we will probably be doing a bonus version of the quiz, as we always do on the 10th episode of each format. So still all to play for.
Yes, and I'll be making sure you get 0 in every single one going forward now.
To make it interesting.
Yeah, just to get me level, and then we'll do it normal, and then you'll beat me anyway. Yeah, but we should talk about the rest of the games from the weekend, starting off with 2 3-0 wins. First of all, for Fulham, as they beat Brighton 3-0. And I didn't expect this kind of result. I'll be honest, I thought Brighton, put up a bit more of a fight. But Fulham were, they thoroughly deserved their win.
Yeah, Fulham have been in pretty decent form as of late. And Brighton seem to be the most inconsistent side in the Prem at the moment. I feel like you never know what lineup they're going to put out, what formation they're going to put out, and what performance they're going to put out. Really, really struggled defensively, especially in recent weeks. And I was not convinced by the lineup they put out. They had 6 players you would define as defenders starting this week, playing a very strange sort of 3-back system, which I do not think works for them. I know it might be potentially because of injuries they've got, but they started the game so poorly, and they didn't get into gear until they changed their system and brought on their sort of best attacking players, looking at Fati, Digne, Pascal Gross, and removed some of those defenders who weren't playing well. And Fulham just got off to a really, really good start. And at that point, and after they were 2-0 up, it was almost too late for Brighton really to come back into it.
Yeah, absolutely was. And you do have to think, maybe did De Zerbi have one eye on Roma in midweek in the Europa League? Obviously, he has rotated aside heavily throughout the whole course of the season, so who really knows, if we're being honest. But I did think the lineup was very weird, and I do agree with you. But I do have to think, you have to give Fulham incredible credit. And I think one person in particular, Rodrigo Muniz, who we spoke a little bit about last week, how he's doing really well. And now it's 5 goals in 5 games for him once he started. And Fulham have, arguably found their Mitrovic replacement halfway through a season. And it was actually a player who they already had on the books themselves. I thought the way he was making himself a nuisance in this game, harrying and hustling, and the way he was winning headers, holding up the play, his speed he actually has, he's not slow, he's frighteningly quick. And I thought to myself, you know what, they've got a really, really good player at 22 years of age as well. He could easily be the future for Fulham. But I think the way he really fought to try and win the ball off the Brighton defenders for the first goal, the way he took the lovely finish for the second goal. And I thought to myself, 2-0 up at half time, and, Fulham and Marcus Rashford would be delighted with that.
Yeah, when Mitrovic left, we were thinking who's going to be the replacement, and it was Jimenez who didn't deliver straight away, and then he got into a pretty decent spell of form before becoming injured. Carlos Vinicius has gone off on loan, so it seems like that would be the one position where Fulham would be struggling, and he has just stepped in and becoming one of the first names on the team sheet, really, the way he's playing at the moment. Absolutely brilliant. And the players supporting him are playing very, very well. They looked pretty solid defensively, Fulham. Decent back line. Adama Traore now with his first goal for Fulham. Another sort of good performance off the bench from him. Willian still balling. They're looking decent at the moment. Fulham. They're creeping up the table, and those teams that are ahead of them, who are sort of fighting for potentially those lower league European places, are maybe it's getting a little bit close. They could potentially be knocking on the door come the end of the season.
Yeah, absolutely, mate. And I think it's weird being, I don't know, when you're in mid-table, it's kind of like, what do you do going forward? But I just think, like, Fulham and Marcus Rashford, there's so much credit that needs to be given to them because they performed, really, really well. And it's one that's really, really surprised me. But I think we should move on then to the next game, which is Newcastle 3, Wolverhampton Wanderers 0. Again, a game that really surprised me because I think these two teams very close together in the Premier League table. And thought to myself, will Wolves being the side who are actually on top, would actually go to St James's Park with a lot of confidence and go into the game really positive. But it's actually Newcastle who got 2 very early goals in this game.
Yeah, I think that was sort of the main point of this game, as Newcastle got off to a really, really good start, and it just didn't allow for Wolves to come back into the game following that. Wolves have been a really good side this season. I would have expected more from them from the off, but Newcastle really needed this win. They have been in a very poor run of form. They've looked super shaky at the back, and to get these 3 points and to get that clean sheet as well, I think is absolutely huge for them, especially against a Wolves side who have pretty decent attacking output. In that second half, Wolves did come back into the game, but Newcastle held really strong and they got the job done early, which I think was good for them as opposed to in recent weeks picking up results. It's sort of come down to late goals and really trying to press on teams that are sitting back against them.
Yeah, and I know you're talking about the front 3 for Wolves, but oh god, they're having terrible luck with injuries at the moment. Obviously, Cunha's out, we know that. Hwang was a doubt and he wasn't able to make this game. But then when you see that Neto went off injured in this game, as well as Sarr, and you think to yourself, oh my god, are the wheels potentially falling off? Because, to be honest, they've got some good players off the bench, but they don't have enough to replace the entire front 3. So that is a big worry for Wolves. But I think fair play to Newcastle in this game because they absolutely went for it. And I think to myself, it is one where they thoroughly need the win as well. They've been kind of iffying around, getting some points, not too many, and there've been noise around like Eddie Howe, and there's all the background of Man United wanting to get Dan Ashworth, and it just kind of seemed like, things were kind of not great for Newcastle. And obviously they did really well last season, exceeded expectations, but now I think even if they get Europa League this season, I think that'll be a massive plus for them, and I think, they can absolutely do that. They're not too far away from Man United ahead of them. They can absolutely make a charge for that 6th spot, and I think it's one where maybe Wolves, maybe they've gone as far as they can this season, but I think, to be fair play to Gary. No, we absolutely love Wolves, and I think they've done a fantastic job this season.
Yeah, it's no need to run to any panic stations or anything following this result. I think 3-0 was probably a bit harsh maybe on terms of the game. Newcastle took their chances very, very well. They got those early goals, as we said, and they were able to break and use that pace that they have through Isak and Gordon to sort of continue their chances out of the game without having to have loads and loads of the ball. So yeah, it was a good result for Newcastle, but not a bad one for Wolves despite losing 3-0, given their injuries and sort of the way they've been playing at the moment.
Yeah, absolutely. And then we should move on to Brentford 2, Chelsea 2. And actually, when we were doing the running order for the podcast, I was I was umming and ahhing about who to put where. I thought to myself, Brentford, Chelsea. If that was a couple seasons ago, the fact that Chelsea dropping points would be, one of the first few games we talk about. That the fact that they're eighth and the fact that, it was still a pretty decent game, I think just goes to show where Chelsea are at the moment, and which is, a pretty damning indictment.
Yeah, especially the fact that not only was it sort of points shared, but it was actually a pretty even game, and I think a fair result, given how both teams played. Chelsea are just still, I think, at that position where they're almost waiting for the season to end. They know that they're not really going to be pressing on those European places, I don't think. And yeah, not too much aspiration, not too much drive at the moment, particularly. And Brentford, it was a big point for them. I think they are slowly creeping at times towards the relegation zone, and a point against a Chelsea side who on the day can be pretty decent is a good one for them, and one that they probably needed to.
Yeah, and I mean, there were so many goals in this game, and there were so many highlights, but I do want to touch on Wies's overhead bicycle kick, because I thought to myself, oh my god, what a goal. And it wasn't really a tired overhead kick, or it wasn't very much like a long distance one, but it was just, the technique was just so true. And I thought to myself, if there was to be I don't know, if you were to sculpt the perfect overhead kick, maybe it'd be 20 yards further outside of the goal. But the fact that, the way he got up and then just the way he moved, I just thought was incredible. And actually, a lot of the time we see that ball go over the bar, but the fact that he was, roughly in the middle of the goal and he kicked it downwards, I thought was fantastic. And to be fair, I just thought to myself, oh my god, what a goal. I mean, if it weren't for the fact there were so many talking points earlier on in the week, that I thought to myself, everyone would be talking about this goal, but seemingly it's gone under the radar.
Yeah, the amount of power he got on it as well. It was almost like he just volleyed it standing. It was, as you said, such good technique to be able to generate that power from there and put it in the back of the net. And yeah, unfortunately, it didn't get Brentford the win, and it was Chelsea with another late goal to secure a point. Which, as we've said, yeah, sort of, I think says their season, sort of scraping points, picking up late results against teams who are much lower than them in the table. Yeah, not looking too good, but yeah, a point each.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, maybe Chelsea can do something in the FA Cup. So it's absolutely, season isn't over yet. There is still stuff to play for Chelsea. So don't be too disheartened, Chelsea fans. But a team who should be disheartened is Burnley, as they lost 2-0 at home against Bournemouth. And I watched the whole 90 minutes. It wasn't a great game of football, but I guess all that matters for Bournemouth is to get the 3 points. And I think we can firmly say that Bournemouth are going to be nowhere near the relegation zone.
No, certainly not. They've made a very decent gap against them. 18th place at the moment. They're still playing well. I think both goals this week, Kluivert and Semenyo, were really, really well taken. Very nicely made. Even if at times a little bit too easy for them. A lot of space left by Burnley. Still just very, very poor defensively. And I think the summary of their season could potentially be this game. 75% possession. Not too many clear-cut chances made, no goals scored, conceding 2 goals, and yeah, even at home as well, especially, just dampens it even more. Not a good one.
No, absolutely not. But I think this is where we're at the stage of the season where teams like Burnley and Sheffield United, they probably are, content with knowing that they're going to go down, and if they make a game of it, it's probably just going to be the fact of just personal pride. But I think, Bournemouth just getting the win was the most important thing, because I think we saw earlier on in the season, only a couple of weeks ago, Sheffield United beat Luton Town in a game where we all thought going into Luton Town were going to get the win. But, it is important you still dispatch sides, even though they probably aren't fighting for anything anymore. And that's exactly what Bournemouth did. Like you said, the goals were fantastic. And I think Semenyo is another player who's gone out under the radar after his move from Bristol City. But I think it's one where you can see he's got really good finishing on him, really strong in his dribbling and his power. And I think to myself, in a couple of seasons, he could be a really good player. Do you see similar signs from Semenyo as well?
Yeah, I think he's a really, really exciting player. I think he's a fantastic carrier. He's been one of sort of the most exciting dribblers this season, not only in terms of close control, but I think when Bournemouth break, he's really, really intelligent the way he carries the ball. He knows when there's space and to sort of take those larger touches and just make the ground, as opposed to sort of doing those close control dribbles and taking it around someone. I think he's got both of those sort of attributes of a good dribbler, sort of at a very good level at the moment. I think maybe he's not getting too many plaudits. His numbers aren't amazing in terms of goals and assists, and that's obviously the first thing we look at. But he's in a Bournemouth side that don't score too many goals themselves, especially outside of Dominic Solanke. So he doesn't particularly get a load of opportunities. But I think the way he brings Bournemouth forward and the way he carries is very, very good. And he's certainly one to keep an eye on for the coming seasons.
Absolutely, and I think to myself, like you said with Dominic Solanke, they've also had so many players out injured, very similar to a lot of other sides in the Premier League this season, that if they can get a fully fit side out, they could potentially be challenging for the top 10, maybe even Europe one day. Yes, I think that is it for all this week's episode of the Football Fellowship podcast. Thank you everyone for joining. If you're watching on YouTube, please give us a like and subscribe, and if you're listening to us on Spotify, please answer our question and give us 5 stars. Join us next week as there's going to be loads of football to talk about. The Liverpool versus the Manchester City game, Villa versus Spurs, and all the remaining fixtures from the week. We'll be here to cover it for you. Thank you everyone for watching, and we will see you in the next one.